Did you know that your retail price is telling a story? Yes, it's telling a story about your brand, whether you mean for it to or not. Many of you listening or watching this episode have a deep meaning and purpose in creating your brand or creating your product. You might have a social impact that you're influencing or personal goal that you're trying to achieve with your business. And I want you to be able to achieve those personal goals, but if you don't have the price right, it's going to be hard. I got to be honest. And that's why I created this pricing series, because pricing is one of the most important and often most overlooked decisions that you will make as you grow your brand. And today's focus is on pricing as it's related to brand positioning. And I say, whether you are a brand new founder or whether you are a seasoned CPG professional, these are the types of things that are always helpful to hear. So I think there's some good nuggets that are here for you. As of the published date of this episode, I am an associate of Ulta Beauty. The ideas and thoughts represented here are my own and not that of my employer. Welcome to the Scaling Emerging Beauty Podcast, a show that provides actionable insights for early-stage emerging beauty brands looking to scale at retail. I'm Monique Benoit, and I'm a former retailer buyer, and I've spent years working with brands and retailers to help products hit the shelves at major stores. After last episode talking about COGS and margins, I'm glad you're still with me. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk a little bit more about brand positioning and fun marketing stuff and not so much about numbers. Although it is all important. It's all important. So I'm really excited to talk about how pricing influences customer perception in part 4, the last of our special pricing series. In this series, I'm breaking pricing considerations down step by step so that you can set prices that cover your costs and position your brand to succeed at retail and beyond. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk directly about that consumer perception and brand positioning. Let's get into it. When a customer or consumer sees your product, they see the packaging, they see the bottle, they see the vessel. If it's in person or even if they ordered it online, they touch it. It all plays a role in how a consumer perceives your brand. Certain things like luxury or premium pricing come with certain expectations. I'm not saying that these expectations are sustainable. I'll go ahead and say that. But let's face it, there is this thing called 7 points of touch that can position a luxury product to just feel better just because of how it's packaged. Have you ever noticed how if you've watched an unboxing video of a luxury purchase, there is a bag, and in the bag, there's tissue paper. You lift up the tissue paper, then inside the bag is a box, probably with a bow on it. You unwrap the bow, then you open up the box just to be greeted with more tissue paper that you then unfold. Sometimes the bag or the shoes are often going to be in some type of protective cloth bag. And then you take the shoes or the bag out of this cloth bag to finally unveil your luxury product. That's intentional. That's really intentional. And I'm going to go ahead and say those different points of touch, of packaging, the tissue paper, the bag, the ribbon, the box, the COGS on those things are a lot lower in comparison to the perception that a consumer has when they touch and they feel those things. That finish, that elevation, it's all relative. And it does vary based on trends and technology that's available at the time. But I want you to consider these things when you're looking at your brand positioning and your pricing. There is a heightened or raised baseline of expectations for consumers in this year of 2025 and beyond. So I just want you to be thoughtful in general of your finishes based on your target pricing, because across the board, cheap just ain't cutting it anymore. It's just not. So consumers have raised their baseline of expectations of what they are hoping to get when they are buying a beauty product. The other thing I want you to consider, who is your target consumer? I want you to consider this because I want to ask, can they afford the price that you're charging? Just checking. And the answer might be no. And so then you might need to make some adjustments, but just make sure that when you write out your muse, you write out your target consumer, that they can afford the product, they can afford that final retail that you're looking to set. And then the other question I want you to consider is, do the results, does the product efficacy warrant the price that you're charging? Does the luxury or the prestige of the name behind your product warrant the price that you're charging? Sometimes pricing is all relative. I'm looking at you, Hermes and Birkin bag, but still, the price is there for a reason. Now, if the item that you are trying to sell, you believe is premium and it's expensive, ask yourself, is it premium and expensive in the eyes of the consumer? And are the points of interaction that the consumer has with my product providing a luxury experience? So said differently, if you are selling a premium product, that outer packaging better be premium. It needs to have finishes. It needs to have a font. It needs to have little details that are going to allow that consumer to feel like, yes, this is a premium product. You're going to notice I'm talking a lot about feelings today, and that's because a lot of these things are relative. Let's talk a little bit more about price as a signal. Prices communicate different things to the consumer just based on the retail. For example, a $12 cleanser says accessible, everyday luxury that works. A $42 cleanser might say something like targeted, dermatologist tested, developed, efficacy, and approved. And a $90 cleanser might say luxury, indulgence, status. Now, I'm saying all of those things because you could also understand that some of the things that I said at these different retails could still be true at those lower or higher retail price points. So keep in mind this, when you're setting your retails, you are obviously going to cover your costs. We talked about profitability in part 3 of the series, but you're also telling the consumer a story before they even pick up your product. So you want to pay attention to these things because how that consumer feels about your brand before they even look at the retail is going to let them know if they're like, what? I didn't expect this, or I totally thought this was going to be the retail, or, $90. I thought this was going to be $150. Now, I don't know what consumer's saying that, but I'm sure that he, she, they is out there. Now, as I talk a little bit more about pricing, I do want to mention a thing called pricing cliffs. And I'll explain it to you with an example. Have you ever seen something for $11.99 and thought, oh my gosh, $11.99, that's so expensive. But you might see that same item similarly priced for $9.99 and you don't even think about it. You're like, oh, it's under $10. No big deal. Now, the difference between $11.99 and $9.99 is $2. And while I know that the economic times are hard, my guess is that that $2 is not going to make a difference for most people. For most people. Let's say some people, because honestly, times are hard and you never know. But either way, I'm saying that to say there are price cliffs that when consumers look at certain prices, they see it and they say, too much, too much. And it can literally be 99 cents more. And the consumer is like, nah. I'm not buying that anymore. Now, you might be thinking, what the heck is that about? And that's because consumers don't always think logically. There's a lot of emotion that goes into how you feel when you're looking to buy a product. And this is especially true now more than ever when we think about transparency that's coming out around prices being readily available. I mean, have you seen all of the TikToks that are out with a lot of these manufacturers sharing their actual baseline COGS? Ooh, I tell you, times are changing. So once again, thinking of price cliffs, a serum for $20 is probably a no-brainer for most consumers, but pricing it at $32 might make it a little bit tougher to consider. It might mean that consumer is going to think twice, retailer pending, right? But if you have the claims and the prestige to back it up, you might be just fine at a $32 retail. Now, if you are achieving some challenging pricing options like affordable luxury, make sure you can back it up. Make sure that it makes sense for your product and for the target consumer. I talked about this in one of the last series, but I often caution against being the highest priced item in the category as a new entrant. I think it was in part 1 that I talked about this. It just makes it really hard to compete when you already have to consider they're trying something new. And then on top of that, they're trying something that is really expensive and new. This is where it can be helpful to have trial products. I talked about this in another episode in season 8. I think it was episode 801 with Erica, where we talked a lot about having travel options, where we talked a lot about having trial and travel options available. So talking about that, here are some questions to consider to avoid some of these pricing mistakes. Is my price aligned with my brand's aesthetic and messaging? Does my packaging quality match my retail price? Are my claims, the results, the ingredients, the story strong enough to align with the price point that I'm claiming? And will my price invite trial or will it create hesitation? I'm going to go back to that Goldilocks rule. You don't want to necessarily be too low and you don't necessarily want to be too high. Aim to be just right. A strong brand needs a strong pricing strategy, because your customer feels your price before they ever use your product. They feel it in their pockets. And all of the things that I've talked about in this 4-part pricing series are things for you to consider as you land on your retail. And this is true whether you are a new brand founder or whether you are bringing new product innovation to the market. All of these things must work together. You have to consider the category, the competition, your target retailer's price. You have to consider your COGS and profitability. And you also have to consider your perception and the story. What's appealing to your target consumer? With that said, that's a wrap on this series about strategic pricing. Oh, it was so much fun talking about these things, and I really hope that this was helpful. I'd love to hear from you in the comments to hear what was the biggest thing that you learned? What was an aha? What's something that you're going to take and go forward across the series? I'll say this, one key takeaway for sure is this. A variety of factors impact pricing. In this world where things are binary, pricing is nuanced. So make sure you consider all of these factors as you ultimately land on a price or a retail that's going to allow your brand to grow smarter and grow in a sustainable way so that you're here for the long run. If you'd like to chat with me, feel free to DM me at Scaling Emerging Beauty and we can talk about the series, or go ahead and leave a comment and we can chat there. I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks as always for listening. Subscribe to the channel because we still have some fantastic guest episodes left for the rest of the season, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.